Hello, hello. So I was asked to do a bit of new writing, and I wrote something new that I reread last night and thought, just a bit too sad for a Saturday afternoon. And then this morning I had, something happened, I had a conversation on the phone and something came out of it. So I thought rather than depress you, I thought, I also do stand-up comedy, by the way, so I thought I wrote some new bit of stand-up comedy that hasn't been tried before, so you guys are the guinea pigs, yeah. So please laugh, otherwise I will cry. So I'm one of these really happy, positive people, you know, like the Monty Python song, always look on the bright side of life. Yeah. Well, that's me. I know, and I'm really annoying. Some people they just want to be like the negative nannies, don't you, Ben? Not on my patch. No siree. I'm like the sheriff of happiness. You know, like the sheriff of Nottingham, except he was a baddie. I want to cheer up the world and make it a better place for everyone. Well, not everyone, I mean, I do have my standards. You know, not for Boris or for Pretty, or for the man who sold me those dud deeds and said they would grow and make me a fortune. Who said, I mean, who did you think I was, Jack and the bloody beanstalk? I asked him for grass seeds. I think he misunderstood what sort of grass I was asking for. But, you know, that's not why I'm happy. No, I was born with this affliction. It's called being Pakistani. So one of my friends that I hadn't spoken to for a long while called me this morning, and she's one of those negative nannies, and she just wanted to bring doom and gloom into my life, but not on my patch. Toy Story. So I told her how happy I was and that I was growing old disgracefully, and that I told her a few jokes about the idiots that I met in my life. She laughed at first and then realised that it was going against the grain of her normal being, and that maybe I was trying to brainwash her with my happiness stories. And then she couldn't wait to get away. Job done, hey. You know, in the olden days, that would have made my mum really happy. Because believe it or not, young people, we used to have these telephone conversations that actually cost you per the minute. Do you remember? You had to phone people, and then you knew who your real friends were because they were actually spending their parents' money on you, talking to you. Oh, those were the days, usually about boys. Yeah, those were the days. So, talking about Boris, I hope you've all been following his advice. You know, washing your hands 5 times a day. I see you're all wearing face masks, or most of you are. Socially distancing, and, you know, raising money for charity like Sir Tom did. You do realise that's Sharia law through the back door, don't you guys? You know, Boris's grandfather, he would have been so proud of him. You do realise Boris's grandfather was Muslim, don't you? See, I'm bringing you happiness as well. And people think that Boris is an Islamophobe, but actually he's not. He was married to one woman and engaged to another, a true Muslim. I can say that, I'm Muslim, and Boris can't hear me, so it's fine. I actually dreamt of him last night. Don't judge me, it was a nightmare. I was like a dresser, not a hairdresser, but I do think he needs one, a good hairdresser. I mean, do you not want just to run your hands through his hair and give it a good tug? Well, or maybe a good cut. I hear the best place to get a decent haircut these days, at quite reasonable prices, is prison. I think that's where he belongs, actually, but anyway. And no, I was his clothes dresser. I was showing him in my dream how to dress, like to get down with the kids, because obviously he has so many. So Boris thinks he's down with the black kids because he's got such a diverse cabinet. You know, he's got at least 3 people of colour there and not an ounce of integrity between them. Never mind intelligence. But they're just like coconuts or ice creams. Can I say that? Oh. It's not racist, honestly, because I'm one of them as well. Remember, Rishi told us creatives to retrain and get a real job. Honestly, he was every immigrant parent's dream boy. You know, why can't you be more like Rishi? I could hear all the mums and aunties saying that all around the world. But what is Rishi like? Have you seen him full length? He wears his trousers, they're like half mast, like a sailor. I mean, really, is that the fashion nowadays? Or can he not just work out what size his inside leg is? I mean, he would be a great poster boy for the Dogs Trust. Look, if you get a dog, he'll rip your trousers like mine have been. Rishi should lead by example and retrain and become a tailor so that he can sew his own clothes to the right length. And not be a doctor, because that's just stereotyping Asians. So talking of doctors, right, my doctor came to me and he said, Lubna, he said, we have a problem. He said, diabetes runs in your family. I'm like, doctor, did you know what the real problem is? Nobody runs in my bloody family. He's like, because of the colour of your skin, Lubna, you're at greater risk of developing type 2 diabetes. I'm like, that's not fair, that is. Well, that's just discrimination. Sugar is racist. Even brown sugar. So this is the reason why Pakistani people should play football. Well, and that because Scotland needs all the help it can get. So you know why so many Pakistani people have settled in Scotland is because, well, we have a lot in common, right? Because we're both really tight-arsed. We get really upset if we have to spend money. I mean, it's not that we're mean, it's just that we'll pay anything as long as we think we're getting a bargain. I mean, I remember I was selling tickets for this dinner show, and it's for a charity event, and tickets were £20. And my mum's friends were like, we call Auntie. They don't have a first name because it's rude to give them a first name, so we just call them Auntie G. So Auntie G's like to me, oh Lubna, I give you £10 for this ticket. I'm like, no Auntie G, they're actually £20 and it's for a good cause. And she's like, okay Lubna, fine, I give you £15. I'm like, well, they're still £20, Auntie G. She said, oh, I won't be able to buy any food this week. And I'm looking at her thinking, that's not a bad idea. No, I didn't say that, because obviously that's disrespectful of me, and we don't do that. She said, okay, fine, Lubna, fine, I'll give you £20. She said, I'll give you £20 for 2 tickets. She should have got involved with the Brexit negotiations. I learned very quickly to love a bargain being Pakistani, and I go to this hairdresser, really expensive place in Edinburgh. Yeah, but I go as a model for their trainees. So you never know what it's going to look like. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So I was at the hairdresser's, and the young trainee, she said to me, now would you like your hair frizzy or you want it to be nice? Yeah, I just didn't realise she was in training for her conversation. You know, hairdressers are like politicians, like they'll say one thing and then do another. And then they'll tell you, no, that's what you asked for. So actually, Asians have a lot in common with Scottish people, is that we're really friendly as well. We love to ask questions. We're just naturally interested in other human beings. So if you haven't met a real Pakistani person from, I'll show you what they're like. Say, oh, hello, how are you, madam? What's your job? How long have you lived here? How much money do you earn? How long do you have left on your biological clock? How much money did you get in your mother's inheritance? Are you married? Any children? Boys? No? Oh, what a shame. And all she's really saying, without pausing for breath, is, hello, where are you from? Do you come from the same village as me? I'm like, what, Glasgow? You know, if the Chinese used Pakistani women, they wouldn't need 5G and Huawei. And if the Russians used Pakistani women, well, they wouldn't need Novichok. And if the Saudis saw Pakistani women, they would run a mile. Because I have no idea why the press paint Pakistani women as like meek and mild. I mean, have you ever tasted a real Pakistani curry? Anyway, I think it's because Andrew Marr said that a few months ago that Pakistani women or Asian women walk 5 paces behind their man. And I was just thinking the morning that actually, you know, the late Duke of Edinburgh, he could never have been racist because he always walked 5 paces behind the Queen. So the men, when they ask you the questions, they are much more subtle, the Asian men, the Pakistani men. They'll come up to you and they'll say, hello, my beta. And beta is a word for son or daughter, right? And of course, as soon as they say that, you're emotionally engaged with them and you can't tell them where to, you know, get lost to. So they're like, hello, my beta. Maybe I knew your father. And I'm like, is he a ghost? Because my dad's been dead 20 years. And all they want to know is, are you going to be a suitable bride for their son, you know? And I'm like, I'm too old to be anybody's bride. I'm just the right age for like mother-in-law material. You know how like you guys have Tinder? Well, we've got a Muslim equivalent, it's called Minder. And I just swipe left and right until I meet in-laws that I'm going to get on with. Like the adverts, is shame. You've got the big man with his belly in front of him, topless, obviously, and then there's a wee woman next to her with the curry pot. And it's like, not looking for any drama or commitment, phobes. Go elsewhere. Come round for Netflix, curry, and interrogation. So some of you are thinking, oh, but do you know guys not have forced marriages? No, that was Charles and Diana. We have, what do you call it now? Introductions, yes. We match up people's education, the background, ugliness. Heaven forbid we mix the gene pool. We could end up with a Pakistani version of the British royal family. I don't think the world could cope with that. Well, maybe they couldn't cope with 2 Prince Andrews. So I want to just tell you about what it's like going through security in the airport. Every time, a lot of you will be like me, we get stopped. It's like random, madam. I'm like, what, you've got a random brown button that you press every time I go through? So I thought I'd have some fun with the women. This is a true story I was thinking about this morning. And the woman said to me, I said to her, oh, I'm only here for the massage. You know how like when you go through, and I'm like, she didn't laugh. And then she said, do you have anything sharp on you? I'm like, you mean apart from my wit? Yeah, she didn't laugh. And then she says, do you have any drugs on you? I'm like, why do you want to buy some? No, she didn't laugh. Sniffer drugs were on me like a second. And I was coming back from Exeter Airport one time. I don't know if you've been to Exeter Airport, but it's like tiny. It's about the size of the front row, right? And this man said to me, security man said to me, oh, Marion, can I have your wages? I'm like, my wages? I don't even give that to the tax man. He's like, no, can I have your wages? I'm like, what, potato wages? I know I'm fat, but I don't have that many wages on me. He said, no, madam, can I have your wages? Like my shoes? I'm like, oh my God, here is a man who knows his shoes? I'm like, no, they're not your style. He's like, how do you know what style I'm? And I said, you're a stiletto heel man. You're from Glasgow. He loved it, didn't check my bag, got my drugs through. Anyway, so my parents came over here in the 60s, and I know some of you might not think that people of colour, we didn't exist before that, but we did. And they couldn't pronounce our names, so all of a sudden we became like, I had all these family members who became like Uncle George, Uncle Jim, Uncle Jackie. I was like, what happened to your Naseems and your Majids and your Zahirs? And when I was 5, I was sent to speech and language therapy because the teachers thought I had a stutter. I was just crying because I didn't believe there was no spices in the mince and tatties I was getting. How life has changed. I want to tell you just a very quick story before I finish about my very first stand-up gig. It was in the Fringe in 2013, and I'd just done a weekend comedy course, writing course, and I hadn't read the fine print, and it said that you do a gig at the end of it. And I'm a type Pakistani person, I just paid £100, I wasn't walking out of that course, right? I thought, a gig, a stand-up gig, fine, okay. So I told absolutely nobody that I was going to do this gig, not my children, not my friends, not my family, nobody. Because I thought, if I'm going to die on stage, I'm going to die alone. But who's going to be there on a, Fringe Sunday? Everybody. The place was packed, there's about 100 people in there. I know, I was absolutely terrified. So I walked up on stage, and we'd rehearsed, and we'd told how to pick up the microphone, what to do with the stand, and we had our set already in our head, not like on a script that I'm doing just now. So I walked up on stage, picked up the mic, took the mic out, and the stand fell apart in my hand. I know, and everybody started laughing. And I was like, oh shit, is this how easy it's going to be? And then, we'd been taught by our tutor, right, that he said, don't worry, a minute into your set, you're going to forget what you're going to say. And I'm like, oh, I'm a trained actress. I don't forget my lines. Yeah, so a minute into my set, I forgot what I was going to say. And it's like my mind went absolutely blank. It's like, you know when you say your life flashes in front of you? That's what it was like. And the tutor had said to us, when that happens, say the first thing that comes into your head. And I'm like, okay. So I see these people all looking at me and I'm like, shit, what do I say, what do I say, what do I say? So I'm like, oh, you do know I'm Pakistani, don't you? And they all started laughing. And I'm like, what's so funny about that? But it was actually laughter of relief. Because up to that point, they were trying to work out where I was from. Because I was dressed like a Western person, I had this brown face, and then this Scottish accent came out. And they were like totally confused. So, you know, I think that's when I realised actually that when I do my stand-up comedy, I place where I'm from straight away so that people can then follow what I'm going to say. So, people tell me I've got a magnetic personality. So I usually attract dogs, cutlery and idiots. So let me tell you about the idiots that I've got in my life at the moment. They're called children. And my youngest son during the pandemic, he said to me, he said, Mum, do you know, Mum, he said, we were walking around Asda at this time, he said, you know, it'd be really useful, Mum, if you use this time in the pandemic to learn how to cook. Yeah, so I used this time in the pandemic to learn how to disinherit him. Cruises coming up, yeah. And then my eldest son said to me, oh, Mum, you know, the real benefit of the pandemic is that, well, people don't have to suffer your comedy. I win, he still has to suffer my cooking. Anyway, listen, ladies and gentlemen, this all started from the conversation that I had this morning with my negative nanny friend. So I hope I brought you happiness, because that's what my job is. Sheriff of happiness. Thank you.